Okay, I think I'm live now. So, hello everyone who's been watching and welcome everyone who just tuned in. I'm Desa, as you might read on the stream layout. I'll be running Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance today, the HD version that re-released on the PS4. It's originally a 3DS game, but every single KH game has had a re-release on the PS4 version, except for the DS titles. But outside of those two, every single game has been re-released, 60 FPS, all kinds of changes. And yeah, I'll be showing Dream Drop Distance in this case, a game that hasn't been ran that much by most people. A lot of people have never seen a speedrun of it. Yeah, I hope to be able to change that today. For now, that's it for the introduction, and if tech is ready, then I'd be able to start at any time from now. So I'm just gonna give a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so first thing, right away we skip 5 cutscenes, just introductory cutscenes, because we do not have to watch them whatsoever. Quick story update. Sora and Riku, the main protagonists of this game, are planning to do the Mark of Mastery, and in this case we start inside of that Mark of Mastery right away. They traveled back in, not in time, but into a dream world, and in this dream world, on their own dreams, is where we fight Ursula now. Because why the hell not? This Ursula fight makes no sense really. It's just there. We have a command deck that you see on the bottom left of the screen, and we also have basic attacks that we can use. We mainly want to use commands against Ursula because they do deal more damage than normal attacks, especially the magic commands. And yeah, the commands are used by pressing triangle, pretty much the most used button in the entire run. We are gonna get not quite big of a variety in those commands, but we'll be using them a lot. As of recently, we had a new route that implemented a few new commands that we never even thought of using, and those will be shown as well. Before every single world, you play as both Sora and Riku. Right now we're Sora, Riku was the other dude beating up Ursula along with us. Before every single world, you have a diving section where you basically dive into the realm or into the dream of the world itself, because worlds are able to dream consciously in this game. That's the thing. It's Kingdom Hearts, what do you expect? And yeah, this is the diving section for Traverse Town, a world that has been shown in Kingdom Hearts 1 before and never outside of that. Actually, no, it has been shown in Kingdom Hearts 1 and all the games that revolved around that. So Chain of Memories and Recoded as well. We can go faster by mashing X, and then Sora or Riku as well are doing this diving strike to just quickly speed up for a short amount of time. You can get 3 ranks on every single dive, gold, silver and bronze. And we try to get gold on every single dive so that by the end of the game we get a Keyblade, which is the weapon of choice we have, that has the highest stats that we can obtain during any percent. There's one Keyblade with a higher magic stat, but that one takes quite a bit of work to get. The Ultima weapon, in case people are aware of the names. So usually we'd skip every single of the bunch or abundance of tutorials that we'd see, but we want to engage into this tutorial, because if we engage the tutorial, we can skip the fight. If we don't watch the tutorial, we have to do the fight. So we're saving a little bit of time here. It's not quite intuitive, but it's faster. Now, the meat of the game, or where most of the RNG comes in, are the Dream Eaters. Those are your party members, and as their name suggests, they eat dreams, or nightmares in this case. We're gonna create 4 Dream Eaters. On 2 of them, the eye color matters. This one needs to be blue-eyed. We have purple eyes, which is fine. We can change their eye color. We would like to have him and the next one be blue-eyed, so that we save time on changing the eye color, but it's fine. It doesn't take long to change it back to what we need. And now, in good old Nintendo style, we're gonna pet them a little bit. For this, you can either rub the touchpad to, well, rub your Dream Eater, or mash X to poke it a little bit. Both of which usually don't make big of a difference, except for if you're trying to change the eye color or disposition. Okay, we went through that tutorial. Now we have the ability board unlocked. Each Dream Eater has its own ability board. Like each type of Dream Eater. If you have two Meow Wows, both of them have the same ability board. And the reason we want specific dispositions is because with a different disposition, extra paths can be unlocked on the ability board. The ability board allows us to get all kinds of boosts, enhancements, and even commands, all of which are going to be crucial for this run. With the blue-eyed, we can go stronger in terms of magic, because a magic node that just increased our magic stat by 1, as well as a magic case that I'll explain later, are unlocked. So just so we have higher magic DPS, because 99% of our damage will come from commands, and those commands are magic-based, the ones that we use. There are also physical commands, but in the speedrun they're pretty ineffective, as physical damage is pretty bad for the most part in this game. The magical damage is just way superior. There are a few exceptions, but we will not see any of those in this speedrun. It takes too long to get them. Okay, so you can bonk into objects here. Shouldn't happen, but it happens, so it's whatever. If I bonk too much, then I won't be getting the max rank. Though one bonk is fine, I should still be getting gold. Good. In total, there are 7 dice per character that we have to perform, and now we have 1 for each character. If we revisit the world, we don't have to repeat that process though, which is good. Something you just saw, you can jump on walls, poles, and whatnot. That's called flow motion, and it's kind of what makes this game unique, because it introduced this flow motion system where you can just parkour everywhere you want. It basically removes all the boundaries you could imagine for platforming. Okay, Komori Bat has yellow eyes as well, so both of them are already trolling us by showing us exactly what we don't need. But once again, it doesn't take long to change the eye colors, so it's not a big deal, really. Same as before, there's a combat tutorial, but we'll engage into it instead of skipping it, as that way we can skip the fight itself. Now we'll switch back from Riku to Sora, because the game itself is based around the drop mechanic that is explained right now, and we can, whenever we want, just change between Sora and Riku. Both of them have individual stories, and outside of the main storyline progression, they do not influence each other whatsoever. So if Sora, for example, picks up this chest right here, it's potentially a chest that Riku doesn't even have, or if he has it, then it could have different content in it. They don't directly influence each other's worlds. In cutscenes, they do, but you could argue that's just plot armor. Now the post box moves away, because that's where we gain access to the post office. And here we can show the rail part of flow motion. You can also dash around, you can do super jumps. You can also perform something called reality shift, where you dive into the matter of the world. For example, I dive into this box and slingshot the box away into the enemies to deal massive damage, especially to the weaker ones, as well as unlock a small little dead end where a treasure chest is hidden. And you can break specific objects with this slingshot, though these reality shifts, or these so-called reality shifts, are all world specific. So this slingshot only works in this world, Traverse Town, and different worlds will have different reality shifts. As you can see, I'm using flow motion constantly. It's just because flow motion is super fast and a lot faster than manually walking to places. A lot of places that we try to go to aren't even accessible outside of flow motion usage. And it's just super fun to use, really. In Kingdom Hearts 3, they brought flow motion back, but they balanced it out. Because right here, as you can see, I can just basically play the floor as lava of the game and not touch it whatsoever. Except for room transitions and when opening chests. But in Kingdom Hearts 3, they adapted that a little bit to reduce the number of super jumps you have. Because right here I can just jump, jump, wall kick, do all kinds of crazy stuff. It got balanced later on. Okay, now we picked up a big chest containing the spell Balloon. Balloon is the most notorious spell in this entire game. Everyone who played the game knows what Balloon is, and everyone who played the game knows how broken it is. Okay, now we're gonna sell a bunch of stuff. We're gonna sell almost every single thing we have so that we can buy some toys for our Dream Eaters. And I'm saying Dream Eaters because we're also about to create a third one to join our party. But before that, I'm gonna sell all the stuff that I have here. Good. Now I get a little tutorial on the command deck, and I create one more spirit. Or Dream Eater. Spirit is like their overall name, but they're Dream Eater. Oh, Dream Eater is the overall name, but the ones that we command are spirits, and the ones that are opposing us are the nightmares. Okay, Tamasheep, his eye color doesn't matter, but we don't want blue or yellow, as yellow can interrupt us in combat, and blue is just not good for the ability board and loses some time. We included them both into the party now, and now we're gonna play even more Nintendogs. And just actually play with those Dream Eaters. Originally, in the 3DS version, you were not able to skip this minigame whatsoever, and you had to play it every single time. But if you actually play the minigame, you also gain more LP, which is what we're trying to collect a lot of. LP is what advances us in the ability board. And yeah. We have to do this like 18 times. Fortunately, we can skip it in the PS4 version, which is a huge blessing. Okay, I forgot to count LP, but I'm just going to use 18 water barrels. We have 19 in total. I'm just going to use 18 and hope that it works. Problem is right now that it's random how many LP you get per usage. And I already saw Meow getting single-digit LP quite a bit. Which I think the highest they can get is 28 or 29. There we go, 28 on Meow. And I've seen a few single digits on him, so it might not be enough for him to unlock every single node that we need. What else? You also see that they're leveling up. That's also because they get EXP, just like we do. But they can get them through those toys, while we exclusively get it out of combat. What I mentioned earlier about the eye color is that once I'm done with using 18 water barrels, I'll be petting the Dream Eaters a little bit just to change the disposition. The disposition can change once every time you enter this bonding menu, so if it changes incorrectly, which it shouldn't because depending on what you do, it consistently changes to a specific disposition. If it happens to change to the wrong one, you just quit out of the menu, come back, and then try again. I've been seeing a lot of 20s, so that's really good. I don't necessarily want to use a 19th water barrel. As you see, it takes a little bit of time to use one of them. If we're very unlucky, I'd even need to sell commands to buy even more water barrels, but I've yet to see 20 water barrel usages, so who knows? Maybe Marathon luck strikes. So Komori Bat, no matter what disposition he has, we want to just poke his face. And eventually he'll turn into a rescuer. Hopefully not too late from now. Purple Eyes was poked tail. We're gonna switch back and forth so that we don't lose a lot of time. There we go. Komori Bat is rescuer now. And Meow Wow, if we poke his tail, will eventually and hopefully turn into a smart cookie. But for that, he'd actually need to engage into what we're doing. Don't be mad. That's what can happen too. They can get mad at you. And it feels like it happens for no reason. It also doesn't benefit us whatsoever. This is a process that just... It can be time consuming, which is why usually if you'd be going for PB attempts, you'd probably just reset if you see two Dream Eaters with incorrect eye colors. I myself am currently also contending for world record on this game again, after losing it like half a year ago or so. And even myself, I usually go with a run that has one incorrect dream eater. If both of them have the correct eye color, it's totally fine. I appreciate that more than having an incorrect one. But it's really not that big of a deal breaker. Now, what I'm a little bit concerned about is that he hasn't been changing whatsoever. Even though we've... There we go, smart cookie. Finally, that only took an eternity. And now we go into ability link and hopefully have enough link points of every single dream eater. The path that we take is set in stone pretty much, but Komori Bat, which we're doing right now, is the only one where you can make an exception if you have enough link points. But if you have that many link points, like I'd need 31 extra link points, it means you must have gotten super unlucky on the other ones. Tamaship has enough as well. Komori Bat needs 310 link points. Tamaship needs 330, and Meow needs 320. You can skip this animation, by the way, if you swap between Dream Eaters quickly enough. But I think it's frame perfect. On a 60 FPS game, it's not easy to hit frame perfect tricks. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Oh my, no way! I'm missing a single link point for Meow Wow. I'm missing one. I can get those link points by just petting them, but if I pet him, then he might change his disposition again, as we left the menu already. So it's way safer to just use the last water barrel we had, as that one will guarantee us at least like 7 or 8 LP. That's a good start. Okay, you saw I sold some commands earlier, but I also gained a few new ones. We gained balloon commands, which, as spoilered, as I teased on earlier, they're pretty notorious. They deal quite a bit of damage. If you equip new commands, you have to wait for the cooldown to finish. And he's also charging a lot of fists, so he'll probably be cancelling a command or two, which is why I'm waiting. But there, those are the balloons. They deal massive damage. There. It's crazy how much damage they deal without really any effort. Something that Balloon does is it ignores the enemy's magic defense, or defense in general, which is pretty busted, as you might be imagining. I shouldn't split that loud, but I have my splits running in the background. That was the first boss of the game, the Hoka Monkey. I didn't even have a lot of time to talk about him. He usually just punches you a little bit, and once he gets to a little bit less than 1 bar of HP, he starts jumping building up those walls that you just saw, the little cage, arena-like, and starts jumping onto a wall and then breaks through the glass floor so that we end up on the 2nd floor, but usually you kill him before that happens. If you don't, then you most likely did something wrong. Okay, now we dive into new worlds. We have 3 new worlds unlocked for Sora, not for Riku yet, because Riku has yet to finish the first world we've been to, Traverse Town. Sora now has Pranks' Paradise, La Cité de Cloche, and the Grid unlocked. For those of you who heard even a little bit about Kingdom Hearts, it's very Disney related. In most games you have a ton of Disney characters that you interact with, Disney characters that are your party members and whatnot. In this game, Disney characters are never your party members, but you still interact with them in cutscenes. You don't interact with them outside of cutscenes though, unfortunately, which is a little bit sad, but this game didn't put as much emphasis on that as others did, as this game also started to be quite wacky with its narrative. This game is not pretty much where most of the confusion stems from that people associate with Kingdom Hearts, but a lot of the confusion that comes from the Kingdom Hearts series originated in this game, which is, like, I think this is the the second last game that released before KH3. There was one more game after that, and then KH3 released. Because, as all stories, this game, or this story, started to include time travel. And time travel is always wacky, no matter how you implement it. And this game, some weird plot holes opened up with it. Or plot holes. They're not necessarily plot holes, but the explanation on them can be a little loose. So, this world, we don't actually do anything here yet. We are not engaging into any fights. What we do is we go to this Ferris wheel for fancy movement. Climb a little bit up, like a normal human being. And we jump into this specific wagon to collect the Malibu Fantasy, yeah. I wasn't sure about the name, so I was waiting for a second. And then we leave again. So we finished the diving section already, which means we don't have to do it again later. And this Malvo Fantasy, even though it took like 30 seconds to pick up, we can sell it for 1,000 money, and that's quite a bit. It's a pretty huge amount for this game, especially as later on, around like 45 to 47 minutes in, we'll be shopping quite a bit. Just like earlier, we'll be selling a lot of stuff, but we'll be buying a lot more than we did earlier. Earlier, we only bought water barrels to have the toys for the Dream Eaters. But on the later menu, we actually buy stuff for ourselves, which are going to be magic commands that we use. The command deck starts out with 4 slots in this game. I think if you play in critical mode, the highest difficulty, it starts off with more. I think it starts with 5 or 6, but don't quote me on that. I know on BBS, Birth by Sleep, it starts you with 5 slots instead of 3. That's where the command menu or command deck originated from that game. In this game, you start with 4 on beginner, standard, and proud, which we're playing beginner, by the way, which is why we're doing ridiculous damage without tanking a lot. Completing specific parts of the story, usually a big boss fight, increases the amount of slots you have in your command deck. And as of right now, we have 4 slots, which is enough for us, because without buying any extra commands, we perfectly fill out those slots with everything we find. That's also why we don't buy anything for ourselves yet, but only for the Dream Eaters, so that we can unlock all kinds of abilities from those. Gold Diver, good. It's not hard to get Gold Diver, but it's heartbreaking if you ever see Silver or even Bronze Diver, because that means you will not be able to collect that super strong Keyblade. It's not much strong, like raw stat-wise, it's just 1 magic point that you're missing out on. But that magic point, because of how scaling and damage in this game works, can be quite detrimental. You can lose quite a bit of time to that, especially as you basically get it for free. You just have to go fast in the diving sections, which we want to go fast anyway. So if we don't get it, then we usually messed up already. And on top of that, we'll lose time for not having that Keyblade. There's also a bit of auto-target with the flow motion stuff going on, especially on poles. Yeah, on poles and on horizontal and vertical poles. There's a lot of auto-targeting going on. So sometimes you see Sora and Riku as well just zooming straight for the next pole, which you just saw that as well. I suddenly had a upward facing trajectory. Yeah. Now we're in the Solar Sailor. By the way, this is, if you haven't guessed it yet, this is the Tron world in this game. As with this world is called the Grid, and the Grid is themed around the Tron world. We will not see Tron a lot here, but we'll see him for a little. You'll see him for a little bit. This chest, after clanking the wall, contains Balloonra, which is a super busted spell. We'll be using it a lot. But just like Balloon, we'll use both Balloon and Balloonra. We used to only focus on Balloonra until people realized, hey, Balloon can be used so well with some of the fights we have. Because Balloon just has stationary balloons that pop, while Balloonra has homing balloons. And those homing balloons are, of course, pretty good, but the cast time is longer, and the cooldown on the command is longer than on Balloon itself. Okay, so now we got everything we need, and now we're just advancing to enter this room, and we drop. So now we switch characters through the dropping system. Also, Catalyst. Sorry if I butchered that name. Thank you for the raid. I'm very happy to see that you're supporting the marathon with that raid. And welcome everyone from Catalyst Street. This is the SpeedCon online right now. I don't know why I tried to equip a Keyblade. As you can see, right now I'm running Kingdom Hearts, Dream Drop Distance, any %. And we have a bunch of other games coming up as well. So if you are planning, or if you don't really have anything to do yet on the weekend, as we also continue tomorrow, you can check out the schedule and see if you maybe like something, or just, even if you don't necessarily like it, just have a good time with other people watching the marathon. So now you can see the power of those balloon commands. I have 4 of them equipped and I just annihilate everything in this fight. Things just die very quickly with it. Does it contain after clanking? No, it actually contains it before clanking, but coordination is sometimes not as easy. The chests obviously have hitboxes or event boxes that tell you where you can or when you can actually open the chest. And in this case, I was just not close enough to the chest, or yeah, I wasn't close enough to this event box of being able to open the chest, so the game made me clank, or I clanked because of it. We want to touch the save point, so I just slid through that save point, but it's crucial that we touch it so that in the revisit of this world, as this is the only world in the entire game that we have to visit twice with every character, in the revisit that'll save quite a bit of time that we would spend walking around, because the loads are really good in this game and we'll basically save warp. I killed those 3 enemies to get level ups. Now you saw that I got strength, magic and defense, which obviously strength, magic, pretty good. We want to be as offensive as possible, so you also want to be able to deal as much damage as possible. But the level itself is already super important, as the level of the character, be it Sora or Riku, is part of the damage formula. So if I have 20 magic and I'm level 10, I'll deal way more damage than if I have 20 magic and I'm level 5. Which means just the raw level makes a big difference. So now we have Hokomonkey again, but this time on Riku's end. We're gonna use the reality shift here to stun him real quick with a slingshot, and then we'll just end him. As you see, he has 1 bar of health. Now he has nothing, so... Oops. There. And my mouse dropped. Nice! Hope I didn't kill the cam. I did not kill the cam. Very good. Good. That was Traverse Town 1, so for now we won't be returning to this world. But we won't be gone for too long. I think in about like 40 minutes we'll see this world again. This world, by the way, is not a Disney World. It's a Kingdom Hearts exclusive world. And the characters that roam around in this world, in this game, are the World Ends With You cast. It's the World Ends With You cast. So Neku, Shiki, Rhyme, and Beat, and Joshua. Those are the 5 characters that run around there. I don't really know much about the World Ends With You, so I'm actually quite surprised that I just recall all of their names. But World Ends With You is pretty good too, from what I've heard. Now the next diving section. As you might have already noticed on the dive earlier and to Traverse Town, both Sora and Riku have completely different obstacles to face while they're diving into the world. Again, they usually don't even roam around the same areas. Like in the next world, in Pranks' Paradise, you saw Sora was in a theme park. However, Riku is gonna be inside Monstro, which is the whale from the Pinocchio movie, or Pinocchio story, tale, whatever. In this case, Monstro is a world we're gonna roam around inside of him, just like we did in KH1, where Monstro swallowed the party, and they had to somehow fight their way out of him. Yeah, but we'll just dive into the world and spawn inside of him, because why not? Oh, there we go. That was the auto swing. It kind of went for the pillar automatically, even though I didn't try it. Or for the pole, rather, not pillar. We're also going to equip the new Keyblade that we got, Skull Noise, because it's stronger. We have 5-4 on our 5 strength and 4 magic on our default Keyblades as stats, or in terms of stats. Skull Noise has 7-7. So 7 strength and 4 magic, and that's quite a big increase. As I said earlier, Dive Wing, which has 1 more magic than the Keyblade we will get anyway during the any % speedrun. Dive Wing is the super strong Keyblade I was talking about that we get if we get gold rank on every single dive. Dive Wing only has 1 extra magic point, so you can imagine that if we get 3 extra magic from a single Keyblade, it makes a huge difference. Okay, that's all we wanted to do. We wanted to collect that one item, and then we wanted to kill those few enemies with the reality shift that I just used. Because that way we can progress into the world a little bit, get some stuff out of the way, and we can grind a little bit. Again, just to get levels, so we can get stronger. And this is the first dive section boss. Both characters will have to fight Queen Buzzerfly, which is this one, and Brawler Mari once. But if Riku faces Queen Buzzerfly early, it's consistent which one you face. But Riku has Queen Buzzerfly early, which means Sora will get her late. And the other way around, Sora has Brawler Mari early, and will get Queen Buzzerfly very late. Now Queen Buzzerfly is a little bit iffy, because she has 4 little beasts that you have to defeat before you can deal damage to her. And if you don't defeat them early enough, you have to wait another cycle for a move. And now you have to coordinate your attacks with what she does, and she just stunned me, which means I might not even get the kill, which would be pretty... This is sad. I should be getting the kill every single time. But I got stunned once, which is why I didn't get it. Let's just hope it doesn't result in a Silver Diver. This is the better attack, because if I don't mess it up the way I did it just now, I should be able to kill the bees way quicker. But I severely got the timing wrong. Which is why I'll have to hope that now, with that extra hit, I can still get Silver Diver. Yeah, Gold Diver. If we get Silver Diver, then Riku won't be able to get the super strong Keyblade, the Dive Wing. And even besides, I've been talking about that Keyblade so much. It's just that useful because you get it for free, basically, and it looks pretty dope. I'd rather finish a run with that Keyblade instead of a different one. Hey, we still got Gold Diver, okay. Dive Wing is not dead yet. Okay, now La Cité de Cloche. This one, as teased before, worlds have different reality shifts. And this reality shift is something we won't use, except for one instance where you don't even see the full extent of it. It's called Dreamline, and with the Dreamline, you can link enemies to create surfaces that you can use flow motion on, just to slide between enemies back and forth. And those surfaces, from there we can use a flow motion attack called, I think it's Dive Attack? No, not Dive Attack, I forgot the name, but it's an attack that deals decent damage to a single target and also stuns them. That was Shock Dive, which we're gonna see quite a lot more. Shock Dive is pretty much the go-to thing if you want to use flow motion moves. But that other thing, we saw it during Hawker Monkey, but we'll also see it during the boss later. This is the boss, by the way. We have a little section where we're on the bridge and have to just run while he bombards us with all kinds of, well, bombs. I don't know what I was getting at, but yeah, he bombards us with bombs. And right here we can just use flow motion to make our way through this bridge. Usually you cannot enter different rooms while in flow motion state, so you'd always have to time it so that it wears off when you're at the room transition, while not wasting too much time by just sliding into the exit. However, that one was a cutscene trigger, not a room transition, which is why we were able to just fly into it. Right here, you're gonna see, I'm gonna time my dash so that it ends just before the room transition, just to not waste any time on traveling. I could do that dive, or this dash, way later, but if I would do that, I'd just dash into an invisible wall and waste time on it. Okay, now we can safe warp. We touch the save point in the town, so that we don't have to walk all the way back. If you forget to touch the save point, you lose a lot of time, because this travel does take quite a bit. You saw how long it took me to get to that place, and I'd have to traverse even more than that, because the cutscene skipped, like, I want to say a third or a fourth of what we would have had to go. Okay, now the next boss. You already saw him, the Wargoyle. With Riku, it's an airborne boss, and will be airborne for the entirety of the fight as well. The whole plaza is burning, and the heat of that just lets us fly. Right there, I used the reality shift to stun the enemy real quick, and I was hoping that he doesn't use that move, because if you get hit by that move, it's not nice. Oh, never mind. Okay, he was taking with it. This is weird. Die. Take it. Okay. Usually he just dives into the balloons if you use them, but I messed up a little bit. I didn't mess up too much, so it's not too big of a deal. if he uses the dark move on you, which is why I was so worried that I got hit by it, he usually grabs you, flies around a little bit while he has you grabbed, and then he just dunks you onto the floor like you're a basketball. And for some reason didn't do that. I don't understand why. Usually he would do that, but hey, I'm fine with it. Okay, now the grid. As I said, all the challenges, the diving challenges before each world are pretty unique. With Sora, when we went to Prankster's Paradise, we only had to pop balloons. And with Riku, when we went to La Cite de Cloche, the world we just left, we had to fight Queen Buzzerfly. Usually if you don't have to fight a boss, you either have to defeat enemies, destroy objects, which is the balloon thing we did earlier, or, as we're doing now, which is the most common goal, collect prizes. But if you watch very closely in the top left of the screen, it says that you have one prize to collect. The trick here is that all the prizes are replaced with health orbs, and the only prize in this entire diving section is at the very end. You cannot really miss it. It's just sitting there. And it's even presented to you because the blocks move away, and that's your only path to take. You can of course bonk the things and then dodge them like that, but that'd be your own fault. You can't really miss them accidentally. Now, something that you might know from the Tron Legacy movie, or even the Tron movie in itself. By the way, the last word, if you couldn't tell, was the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Light cycle. In Kingdom Hearts 2, light cycle was first introduced in the Space Paranoids world, so the Tron world of that game. In that game, you were not really able to speed up a lot without exploiting mechanics of the game. It's similar here, but it's a little bit more on the nose how to speed up. If you constantly press square, you can change modes between assault mode and I think it's D-Res mode or something like that. I think it's called D-Res mode. Most people probably don't even know that it has a name, but I'm pretty sure it's D-Res mode or something. Whatever. If you switch from assault mode to D-Res mode, where the discs retract themselves, you gain a little speed boost. So you might hear it, burst square inputs to hit the frame windows as good as possible. It's not frame perfect or anything, it's just obviously better if you hit it earlier. You get out those so-called pumps, and we just pump our way through this entire minigame. This minigame is divided into two parts. Part 1 is just all kinds of minions trying to stop you, but especially on beginner they don't really matter. They can stun you a little bit, cost some time if you drive into their D-Res beams, that everyone's standing along with them, just like I got hit there. But there's no real risk of dying, especially because this is beginner difficulty. We take quite a lot less damage than we would do in other difficulties, like Proud or Critical. But we also deal a lot more damage. It doesn't mean that we cannot die. You'll see that later on. Hopefully you don't see it on an example, but you'll see how much damage we take. Now that was the first part, and now we get introduced into the boss of this world, which is Commantis. Commantis is, well, a commando mantis. A digital mantis, basically. She has quite a bit of health, but this D-Res beam deals quite a bit of damage on beginner. And now, when she's in front of us, we can just use the assault mode to assault shot her. Or assault shoot her. Use assault shot. There we go. And we can also lock on so that the shots kind of track her. She can go behind you, especially when she has lower health, but it doesn't really seem like she's gonna do that in this fight, which is perfect. That was actually really good light cycle. There isn't a lot of variety in this, but she can just go behind you and be off screen for a little bit, chill there, just so you can't damage her. Luckily she didn't do that. Now she's gonna go. Her planet needs her. But we'll see her again, don't worry. In about like 4.5 minutes. Skipping a few cutscenes. And we got a Keyblade in the previous world. Usually every single time you finish a world you get a Keyblade. In this case we got the Guardian Bell, which has 7 strength like the Skull Noise. Oops. 7 strength like Skull Noise, but 10 magic, so we get 3 extra magic. And we're gonna equip that now. And we're gonna keep that Keyblade for a while, because Guardian Bell is strong, which is also why we do Cité de Cloche early, so we have that Keyblade early. It is the first world you want to visit, according to the battle level that the worlds have. But it plays perfectly into our hands, because we need a lot of magic. That Keyblade has a lot of magic. Oops. Right here, this is just a mob fight, just a ton of enemies. Most of them even have some kind of super armor and can do really obnoxious attacks. So we just stun them and deal as much damage with balloons as possible. During the fight, because this chest is pretty cool, we collect Fandara. And Fandara is one of the new things added into the route. Usually people would only rely on Balloon and Balloon Ra. But especially with recent developments, we realized how good, well, first of all, how good Balloon can be in late game as well, which we didn't think of as you get it this early. And it deals slightly less damage than Balloon Ra does. But Fandara is a pretty underrated spell in this game, because people just focus on Balloon and don't even try to expand themselves on what kinds of commands are pretty good. There are quite a few good commands, but balloons are just way superior to most of them. Most of them, not all of them. Fandara is one of those contenders for stronger commands. Why? You'll see why in a bit, but I won't be using it in this world yet. Okay, I kill this one enemy, so I get a little bit of XP, and then I dip, go into the next room. And in this room, we defeat a few more enemies. The Cyberyoks right here. Hopefully we defeat them both with one Balloon Ra, but we got stunned, so not quite. There, level 6, and we continue. We just want level 6, so the next boss fight is a little bit easy on us. Oh god, I misclicked. Nice. So the problem with those turrets that we have to take out is that they can stunlock us just like we can stunlock enemies. But usually if they stunlock you, we don't really have much that we can do about it. You just saw I was hacking those turrets to let them explode. I did that with Sora before as well. Every single enemy has a specific set of commands that you can issue to them. Can be prize box, it can be moving spark and whatnot. The turrets always have auto destruct on them, or prize shot if you cannot destroy them, or if they aren't mandatory to be destroyed. And doors or door panels have unlock on them, which is what we just did. Now we just wait on the elevator, derp a little bit around with flow motion because it's fun. And I didn't hit the door while it had a hitbox. Go here to destroy 2 more turrets. Use the reality shift. The reality shift, by the way, cannot be used on everything and anything. You have to know which enemies are constantly available for reality shifts, like turrets, or deal enough damage to them. The damage amount is not consistent, because every single hit can trigger a reality shift. If it deals more damage, it's more likely to give you a reality shift as well. In this case, the turrets are just there, and you can reality shift on them. You can see that you can reality shift an enemy because it has purple arrows pointing downwards on his lock-on symbol. The lock-on symbol is the yellow/blue little rectangle you see on enemies, which is the auto lock-on that we have in this game. And that one can include the arrows that indicates, oh, by the way, you can do reality shift. As you might have seen, the reality shift in this world is hacking things. It's not quite useful. We only use it to progress the story, really, and there's not a single use of it that we have that is not mandatory. No, yeah, not a single one is not mandatory. Now we skip a few more cutscenes, and then we arrive in this room. One of the few exclusive rooms to Riku. This world is something where Sora and Riku travel in the same areas, but this room is a room that Sora cannot enter. Which is because right here is the boss, Comantus. I told you we'll see it again. Comantus can be a little bit icky. In the first phase, you need to hit every single balloon command without being stunned to optimally get her into the next phase. After every single phase, she'll go into a defensive mode where she recharges, and we can interrupt it by just reality shifting and hacking her. That way we don't have we can't even wait. We have to reality shift and then use energy jammer, which has 4 commands that we issue. That's the second phase, and now for the third phase. This is a pretty good fight. She hasn't been interrupting any of my balloons, which is quite rare. Usually she interrupts you all the time, and it's pretty obnoxious, but she played along pretty well. That's the final one, by the way. It doesn't get tougher, really. Her movement patterns get tougher, her AI gets a little bit stronger. She does a few more attacks, but the hacking itself is quite easy. Huh. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that again. That is the grid with Riku. We get dual disc. The first new Keyblade that we won't equip because it's physical based, and we don't go physical. We go all magic. And you might remember that we entered Pranks' Paradise earlier, which is why we don't have to dive. We just enter right away and can move, continue from where we left off. The reason we don't finish it earlier is because the boss is a lot easier if you're as strong as we are right now. But it was just very nice to get that extra EXP that we collected. And you lose like 2 or 3 seconds going here early. Compared to the EXP you get, you make all of that time up again. Now we collected collision magnets, something that we'll use for one single fight in the entire game. But it's just so useful that it's worth going out of your way, trigger that little room flip, and open the big chest. Then we go right here. Usually you're supposed to flip the room and raise all kinds of platforms. But we have flow motion, so we don't really care about that. Now, Charclosser. This fight used to be obnoxious like nothing else. However, with the new route, our damage output is just enough to constantly get the reality shift on him. If he gets hit by the balloons, there we go. And if you reality shift him, you can just pop the little water bubble that you saw earlier when I did the little grind. And if you just constantly pop that thing, he is stun locked. Which helps us a ton. Usually you would have to pray that you get this reality shift. But with the damage we deal now, it's just enough that it consistently triggers after your 4th set of balloons if you position him properly and get hits in on him. Or on it. Which is very nice. It makes this fight so much nicer, because usually, if you don't get the kill quickly, he'll just roam around the entire arena, and you'll have to play a game of catch-up with him. So, what we do now is the shop that I teased on earlier. I hope I have a shop, because I saw that Sora gets overcast, which I can explain later, but I didn't get a shop, so I have to drop. What I need now is a weather condition. Weather conditions are just, well, weather conditions that can happen at random in the game. And these weather conditions allow us to get different benefits. Like increased amount of HP offset enemies drop, more magic damage, lower price in shops and new items. And we want to go for the shop and new item thing. So we go here. And now I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff. Because we also sell for more. I need to make sure that I don't sell the wrong things so I don't have to rebuy them. But we do want to get quite a bit of money here. But what I'm getting now is enough. Now, we buy 1 Fandara, 1 balloon, and 4 balloon Ras. And now we equip those. We equip Fandaras on Riku. Then we leave the world. And now we'll continue as Sora, because now, with all the free worlds, or all the free worlds that we finished as Riku, we'll also have to finish as Sora to continue with the story. Now, usually you wouldn't do the menu that I did earlier with Sora this early, because you'd wait for the shop, but we have everything we need, so I figured I might as well do this menu early. And I just thought of that now, that we already have everything we want to equip anyway, so we can also do the menu here. We're gonna leave this world and leave the boss for later. And now we're gonna go to La Cité de Cloche. Again, because we want the Keyblade of that world. In this case, Guardian Bell. Just like with Riku, the Keyblades, if they look the same, if they have the same name, they have identical stats between both characters. And outside of like outside of two exceptions, all Keyblades that Sora and Riku collect are identical. The two exceptions are 1, the starting Keyblade, The one you saw on Sora is the Kingdom key, the first Keyblade you ever saw in the game or in the series when you start off with Kingdom Hearts 1. And Riku's Keyblade was Way to Dawn, which is a Keyblade that I'm gonna say it manifested over time. Because Riku was originally a Keyblade wielder, and then some stuff happened in Kingdom Hearts 1 and he ended up not being a Keyblade wielder, but Sora kind of... he didn't lend it, but... yeah, the Keyblade was passed on to him unintentionally. Which is also why he can wield it now. No, that's getting into very deep lore territory, and I'd be sitting here until next week if I would want to explain all of that. If you're interested in that, this game explains a lot of the things. Like, this game catches up with you quite a bit if you missed out on events that happened in other games. So you can read through summaries in this game, but just play the games. The games are pretty fun to play. Every single one of them. Like, at least one playthrough is fun. Nobody forces you to do them. I'm just encouraging you. Okay, so something that happened, didn't happen as much, is we can get cancelled out of our commands. Which the commands are going on cooldown before we actually use them, so if we get stunned out of them, we won't use them. But that's usually not that big of a deal if you actually pay attention to what you're doing. Sometimes you cannot prevent it because enemies just cheap shot you from the side though. And the fight I just did is something where I would have shown off the special abilities that Dream Eaters have with the character you play, because they differ whether you're Sora or Riku. However, with the new route, it's very unlikely that you even get the chance to use those special abilities in this specific fight, because we're just too strong at this point. And therefore, usually, even if you have it, it's debatable if it's even worth it. As you saw, the fight is not long. It wouldn't have been cut down by much in terms of time investment. And it risks, or puts you at risk to not have this ability ready for later when you really need it. If you look at the health of the enemies, they have a yellow, green and a pink bar, sorry. And the pink bar is what I was referring to. The pink bar is the link gauge, and the link gauge is what allows us to use the special attacks of Dream Eaters. Those special attacks can be combination attacks if Sora uses them. So like riding on an elephant or flying around with the bat. And if Riku uses them, he gets into different command styles, I'll call them. Command styles was the terminology for it in Birth by Sleep. I'm not sure if they're called command styles here. I think they have a different name. But Riku links with his spirits as well. And what happens is that he kind of absorbs them to go into a different style of fighting. Like he uses water element or fire element, maybe darkness or light, all kinds of stuff that he can use. But it depends on which Dream Eater you use for the link. Now, the fight we just had is just 3 flowers that you have to defeat, 3 flower enemies. Спокойной ночи, Семи. Тебе тоже, Семи. Упс. Все нормально? Окей.
А куда ты идешь?
Просто иду.
Почему ты на... Это ты?
Нет, это не я. Я играю эту Сэм.
Почему?
Давай, спокойной ночи, Сэм.
Куда этот человек идет?
Давай, выбирай себе книжку.
Куда этот человек
Он
идет?
просто гуляет, Сэм. Да, выбирай себе книгу. Спокойной ночи. Okay, sorry for that little interruption. My little brother is going to sleep now. Some of you might have even understood what we were talking about. Yeah, the flowers we're just blocking off the exit, so we defeated them so that they can open up the exit for us. Makes sense, right? Now we went through the graveyard to the secret hidden place of the... what do you call them? I think, yeah, gypsies in this game. Because in Hunchback of Notre Dame, you have the story of the Hunchback and Esmeralda the gypsy. And we're basically going to the hiding spot to... I think in this game we want to warn them from the evil guy, but I'm not sure. I haven't watched Hunchback of Notre Dame in so long. I definitely have to rewatch it. Angry brother on the stream. Well, he wasn't angry. He just sounded a little bit disappointed. I don't know why, though. I don't know what happened. But my dad's got to take care of that. Okay. You see all this little purple goo on the floor? It increases our drop rate, which is the rate at which we drop. Usually, in this game, you... Oh, I never changed out Fandara. Okay, that'll be interesting. In this game, you don't just have to force the drop, but the game can force the drop for you if you play with the same character for too long, which is the gauge that is next to our health bar. The slightly lengthy one with the number on it. But we're just way too fast, so the game never forcefully drops us, except for one instance where it's not even dependent on the gauge. Okay, that was a pretty cool fight. That was Wargol, the guy we defeated earlier with Riku, but he lost his wings. This is where I'm sad in the cutscenes the worlds interfere with each other, or like what Riku does can have an effect on Sora's world, and what Sora does can have an effect on Riku's world. Because Riku defeated him, he fell down, lost his wings. But as I said earlier, they're both visiting the dream versions of those worlds, which is why theoretically they're not connected. They cannot, Sora and Riku cannot see each other in those worlds. But they are linked in a specific way, but that again goes into quite a bit of lore territory, and I'll explain a little bit later if there is the need for that. Okay, now we're back to Prankster's Paradise. We already saw that world with Riku, but now we're in the theme park version that Sora has to visit. And now we're actually gonna do something and not just enter the world. Which in this case means we also have a forced fight right here. And we're gonna start seeing the effects of Fandara. Fandara is a pretty strong command, and it's definitely underrated. It's overshadowed by Balloonra and Balloon in general, but it's also quite underrated. People aren't aware of how strong that thing can be, especially with lots of enemies around. Oh, there's another enemy. Okay, maybe the Balloonra was not necessary for him, but that's fine. As you see, we barely use any physical attacks in this game, because physical attacks just don't really cut it at all. And magic is just the way to go if you want to go fast. If you want to have fun, it's a different story. Like if you play casually, I'd highly encourage to probably even stay away from the balloon spell and just go with more fun alternatives. Fire, Blizzard, Thunder, Faraga Burst, Faraga Burst, there we go. Faraga Burst, Windmill moves. There's so many cool moves hidden in this game, but they're just all overshadowed by Balloonra. So if you ever decide to play this game, feel free to experiment with all the commands that you are given. But we're trying to go fast, so we're limiting ourselves. Right here we're gonna grind a little bit on the way to the next fight. Defeat a few enemies with Fandara, because Fandara is just super good against crowds. And what we do is we basically go deeper into the theme park to the main attraction, I guess one could call it. Of all kinds of trampolines. I think I should have shot left. Okay, we want to defeat those enemies, but I think that would take too long, so I'm gonna just defeat a few more later. We want to grind a little bit. I think my EXP is fine though, so I can just continue. It's not a big deal. We can always make up for EXP. Now you see those bears that we fought before, the Kuma pandas, are red here, which basically just means that we cannot flow motion off of them. And they're a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more angry, a little bit stronger. But there we go. Now they're normal colored again, so we can flow motion of them if we want to, but we don't really have a need for it. Balloonra one-shots them if you get the hit on it, which is why we want to try and launch the Balloonra inside of the Kuma pandas to get the full effect of it, but it doesn't always work, especially because the Kuma pandas can knock you around. Like right there, he even canceled my Fandara, which is not nice. Quite not nice of him. Oh, what can you do? Okay, there's one more. Oh, there he is. Nice. He basically invited himself to his own doom. This fight has way heavier music than one might seem. You're fighting teddy bears and small little bats, but the music's so intense. And if you played Kingdom Hearts 1, you might have even recognized that track from other boss fights where you're just fighting colossal enemies, and now it's a bunch of teddy bears and a few bats. Things that you would probably want to cuddle if you'd see it in real life. Okay, now on the way back, all the enemies respawned. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna defeat them all once again. Get a little bit of EXP. Oh nice, this is actually a very similar amount of EXP to my practice save file from earlier. The EXP amounts that you can have can vary quite a bit, but right now they're pretty similar to what I practiced with earlier. So I could potentially even go with the new idea I had earlier, but I haven't tested it enough, so I'm gonna refrain from doing so. And now we're gonna ignore the rest of the enemies because they're all they take a little bit too long for the amount of EXP they give us. Our goal is to hit level 10 before the next fight, which isn't really hard. We just defeat a few things on the way. Defeat these juggle pups, and we continue. We're already level 9, so we're almost there. Now we shock dive this bunch of enemies. Use Fandara here so that pandas spawn and defeat those again with Balloonra. Hope that they actually get defeated from it. And that they don't stun us, which they love to do. 482 is perfect. That's really, really good. Now we're gonna jump on the rail so that we can spawn these enemies. You don't need to be on the rail, but if your position is a little bit weird, then they won't spawn. They just will refuse to. By the way, secret boss over there. You probably didn't see him, but there's a little frog in the knight's armor, and that guy is a secret boss. Which is pretty funny, but he does take quite a while to kill. He's not hard, but the fight is lengthy. Okay, and now we're underwater, which means we pretty much have moon-like gravity, which is pretty fun to play with. The room is also huge, so it's super nice to use flow motion here. Generally, flow motion is one of my favorite parts of the entire game, and one of the main arguments on why this game is good, in my opinion. But am I missing balloons? No, I just didn't equip them. Okay, I was scared for a second there. Yeah, now we're even deeper underwater in an underwater cave on our way to the next boss fight, which is gonna be Charclosser, but in a different color. In this case, instead of being red, he's blue, and with his color changing, he also has a different name. In this case, he's called Chillclosser. You'll see he'll not be using fire-based attacks, though you didn't really see the fire-based attacks on the other fight either. He's using ice-based attacks. It doesn't really make a difference for us. Both of them go down fairly easily, but this guy has a lot more health. And is a little bit more obnoxious because of his DM phase. Now, what is the DM phase, you might ask? Every single enemy, or every single boss in the game, and even some enemies have something called we call DMs, which are their desperation moves. When the enemy gets, well, desperate, is in a pickle, then he starts using all kinds of special moves and basically tries to make your life as hard as possible, which is what we're trying right now. Which also results into more powerful attacks and us having to pay more attention to what's happening. In this case, we just finished the fight so quickly that we have to wait. That's something I figured out earlier today. The initial attack he does, if you just spam triangle, you can roll past his initial attack and avoid getting damaged. But if you just roll past it immediately and then just start spamming your balloon, it doesn't matter what time you have, just mash the hell out of triangle button. You will be so fast that you have to wait for him to finish his DM. Which this wait, by the way, is a reroute that I thought of. If you wouldn't grind as much, the fight would still be as fast, but fights in later worlds might be affected by it. So that's something I wasn't able to really experiment on yet, but it also shows you just how active this game can be. Right now, we have only myself as a runner, but there's a lot of people also just theorizing about the game, trying to come up with strats, routes, and whatnot. Even if they're not running actively, they're just thinking of the game every now and then. Thinking of new ways to fight enemies, new ways to grind, new commands that we can abuse. which is pretty exciting. Kingdom Hearts is a series, like in terms of speedrunning, where even after, like Kingdom Hearts 2, for example, that game, the final mix version released 2006. I think 2005. So it's been 15 years. And to this day, to this very day, we find A, strats for fights that we've been doing for 15 years now, and B, even mechanics. Sometimes we're like, yo, did you know this is a thing? Everyone looks at it and was like, how the hell did we miss that in 15 years? So Kingdom Hearts, no matter which game it is, even if it's like Dream Drop Distance, one of the critically less acclaimed games, a game that people don't like as much as, let's say, Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, or 3, there's still all kinds of new things, even if it's just a small route change that we constantly are figuring out. That was a pretty sick fight, by the way. And yeah, there's just so much that constantly happens in here, which makes it so exciting, and which makes it so exciting to be a runner of this game. It's pretty cool. Even more so if you are part of who makes the change. So, while I was having this little deep dialogue, or monologue rather, not dialogue, I fought a boss, Rinsler, or Tron, depending on if you watch the movie or not, it makes sense or not. And yeah, you saw, because we got the stronger Keyblade and just beefed up quite a bit in numbers, he was pretty pathetic. We just spammed triangle, spammed balloon rush, and he just had to sit there and tank it. Now that is another thing. If you roll into an obstacle, a pole or a wall, Sora and Riku both automatically just assume that you wanted to wall kick off the wall or swing around the pole, and they'll just put you into flow motion. And as said before, if you're in flow motion state, you cannot leave rooms, which also means it's a little bit obnoxious if that happens out of your control and you're just sitting there waiting for Sora to do his little initial spins. Spokojna nocie, mama. Mama, ja, Naraska. Später. Ist grad schlecht. The joy of living at home as a speedrunner. Yeah. Another quick fight. You saw I used a comet move. I let the cutscene play a little bit so you can actually see what happens. But you can also see that the purple gauge, or the pink gauge that the Dream Eaters have, is emptied now. Because we used them. We used their special move. If you use both of them at once, you don't just have individual moves, you can combine them. If you combine them in this case, you will be able to summon Comet, which is a pretty powerful attack, physical based, which is also why we changed Keyblade for a second. And that attack is just very strong and very good against normal enemies. On boss fights it's pretty useless, but against normal enemies it's really good, works really well. And if we would have used Comet in the earlier fight in the Hunchback world, if I would have had it available, then I maybe wouldn't have had it for the fight just now, which is even more detrimental than not having it in the Hunchback world. Because in the Hunchback, as you saw it, it doesn't even take that long. I made one little mistake with the commands. You usually want to have 3 balloons for this fight so you can preset them, because you know where the enemies are gonna spawn. But I didn't do that, so I'll have to work a lot more with Balloon Rush, which is fine. It's not weak or anything or worse. It just makes this fight a little bit less safe as you start off with a higher, with an enemy that has higher health. You see, all these bosses are enemies we fought already. Hawker Monkey, Wargoyle. Please defeat. Run to the ground. The Spellican, the enemy over there, summons them all out of I don't know where. Not from, I don't know where he summons them all from, but he's able to summon them. But they're not really a big deal for us. They're fairly easy. Now, I'm saying that they're fairly easy, but especially if you don't have Cure, like I don't, you can be defeated very quickly, because especially the Wargirl we just fought, but also this Charclosser is able to just stun lock you into a corner, and you will not be able to break out. If he wants to, he just stun locks you and you won't be able to do anything about it. Especially if you don't have cure, you just lose. Okay, now we defeated the triple threat boss fight. We're gonna get a Keyblade because we finished Traverse Town for the second time. I almost called it the wrong world. And now we're gonna drop to Riku. Riku's gonna finish this world as well. His second visit on it. And from there we can continue with the second cycle of worlds. We're also gonna take advantage of drop bonuses, which we haven't been able to use at all before. If you collect enough drop points, which is, I'm gonna call it currency that the enemies drop. Between switching characters, you'll be able to get yourself a boost in magic or attack or in the rate at which you're automatically dropping. In this case, if we have it available, we always go for a magic increase so we deal more damage. It doesn't even matter what difficulty you're on, you always go for magic. Except for maybe critical level 1, I think that one might be going for attack event at some points, but critical level 1 plays this game completely different from what we do right now. So we're going for magic because we're completely magic based in this route. You always have enough drop points at this point for a magic gain level 1 for Riku. If you're very, very lucky, you have enough for magic gain level 2, which is far stronger. I can't give you an exact number, but it's far stronger. But magic gain level 1 is totally fine. Also, those Cerateros, which are those Triceratops, they love moonwalking. I figured out yesterday that they are able to moonwalk if, I guess, you hit them weirdly. But they love doing that apparently. Just now, one of them did it too. Okay, that's a Ceratero fight. That's the, we're gonna call it quote-unquote boss fight that Riku has to do in this world. It's not really hard, as you can see. It can be overwhelming if you get, if the fight gets out of your control. Even on beginner, you can, or in the speedrun, you can be stun locked a lot. But as you saw, it's not that hard. If you properly use, or if you start off properly by using Fondaras well, and then use balloons as they spawn, you can't really lose much time in it. So that fight is one of the fights where a really good strategy, or just awareness of how the enemies work, can go a long way. Oh. Okay, now we finished the second visit of Traverse Town, which means we can enter the second world cycle, which is pretty cool. 2 worlds this time, not 3. The Country of the Musketeers and Symphony of Sorceries. Symphony of Sorcery, Country of the Musketeers, you can imagine which Disney movie it is. Tarzan. No, it's the Three Musketeers, of course. But the Symphony of Sorcery is a world that a lot of people wished for when, I think, starting with KH2, a lot of people really wished for Fantasia World, and this is what they got. It's generally a very well-received world. A lot of people love this world, and it's visually really aesthetic, and the music's super nice, as well as the sound effects, don't get me wrong. Personally, I'm just not that big of a fan of it, because it does have one, not controversial, but weird element to it that you'll see once we're in the world. You can't really notice it during the diving section, because the diving section is not affected by it yet, but you'll see what I mean in a bit, once we enter the world. In this case, the goal is to defeat 30 enemies, so we do that. We do just that, defeat 30 enemies. That way we can finish the diving section properly, or successfully. We also have gotten Gold Diver every single time. As mentioned, we need that for the Super Keyblade later on. So, if possible, I'd like to keep that trend up. To 1, be able to show you off that super nice Keyblade, and 2, just go fast. Gold Diver, there we go. Okay, now we're in Fantasia, or in a world that's got inspiration from Fantasia. But we're in the Mysterious Tower of Yen-Sid as of right now, and then we're gonna travel into the realm of music. Something I have addressed earlier, but not really talked about yet, because unfortunately it hasn't happened yet. If you look at the drop gauge next to the health of Riku, it has a number associated to it. Usually we saw 1.0, sometimes we've seen 1.6, In other areas, we saw, I think we saw 1.3 in the Hunchback world with Sora. Later on, we'll also see 3 with Riku, or something very close to the number 3. That generally only indicates how fast that drop gauge is filling up and how fast that automatic dropping process is, or how far it is advanced. If it's on 3.0, your drop rate is 3 times higher than it normally is. Right now it's in 1.3, so it's 30% higher than the standard amount. However, every single time you enter a world, depending on the weather you have, so the random augment of the world, on the shopping augment, nothing happens visually. On the price augment, where enemies are way more likely to drop price boxes for items and commands, you have 1.6 as your drop multiplier. On Overcast, which is what we want to see in every single world if possible, you have 1.3. It's exactly what we have here. Which you might imagine now, oh, okay, Overcast sounds good. What does it do? Overcast increases our damage output by 20%. Our magic damage output. And we already deal quite a bit of damage. So 20% on top of that just completely annihilates every single enemy. Now the catch to that, which is why I'm not as hyped about it right now as I maybe should be from the description I just gave you, is that the world we're in right now doesn't fight a single enemy. Now, okay, we do fight an enemy, but that enemy is fought in a different manner where the overcast we have does not apply. Which also means if you get overcast in this world, it's basically like the game just laughing at you and be like, haha, you want that? You won't get it. Also, I just missed that branch, which makes me very sad because it takes a little bit to climb back up. It's usually not hard to catch that branch. I don't even know how I missed it, but whatever. Just gonna go back up and it's fine. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Because we need to get up here. Yeah, so we do have Overcast finally, which is the first time we see it in the entire run, actively. However, because we aren't fighting a real boss, or we aren't even fighting enemies in this world as Riku, it's completely wasted. It's not like there's a pool of Overcast and the game just randomly distributes it to that. It's completely random if it happens. But, unfortunately for us, we A, haven't gotten it at all yet, outside of this world, and B, the world we just got it in, which is this one, is completely unaffected by it. But that's fine, that you tend to see Overcast in this world, which is a little bit weird, but that's whatever. So the reality shift in this world, I've used it quite a bunch now. That was the last time we used it actually. It's called Melody Catcher. You have to go by the rhythm of the game's music in the background and just press buttons as it tells you to. If it tells you to hold triangle, you hold triangle. If it tells you to press triangle, you press triangle. Easy as that. If we miss one out of all the notes that are available, we save a tiny fraction amount of time, but because it's not hard to miss something, it's basically free time save. If you get all correct, you get an extra firework after the reality shift, and that slows down the process a little bit, but not much. Now if I Chernobog, or Chernopog, as I like to call him sometimes. Chernobog is the boss of this world, and as you can see, we're basically diving, like what we do when we enter worlds. And as you also might see, that one hit did 1 bar of damage, and it's completely unaffected by stats. If you're playing this game on level 1, you're gonna deal the exact same damage. You're just gonna tank a lot more damage. Or you'll take in a lot more damage from all kinds of attacks. The firebolts are homing, by the way, which is why we're moving around, so that we're not stationary and they're not homing in on one place, that place being where we are. This fight has 3 phases. Every single time you hit him, he knocks you back further and further. And now this is the last phase, the most difficult phase. It's still not difficult, but if you're not careful enough, you can easily get hit here. He summons ghosts, and I have to circle around them a little bit, because those ghosts drain your health, which is not optimal if it happens constantly. You can avoid them if you space yourself properly away from them, but sometimes they're in a pattern that you cannot avoid them and you just have to press square to activate this little barrier here to throw them away. But right here, for example, I can just go to the side and nothing happens. But this should be it. Yep, that's the Chernobyl boss fight. It's not really exciting or anything. It's honestly the most boring boss fight in the game, luckily. And it's the only boss fight that we have to do in a diving style. So, oops, that's too early. This is also the one boss fight where for some reason you can pause like up to 8 seconds after the fight's ended. And if you want to skip the cutscene, you have to wait until you see the loading symbol in the bottom right. Now, next world and final world for a little bit for Riku is the Country of Musketeers. Before we even enter that world, we're gonna go into the menu and do something called the Dream Eater glitch. Oh no. Oh no, I forgot to buy something. Oh no. Just a second. I knew I forgot something. It went way too well. Now, the Dream Eater glitch. You see? I hovered over Rio Dragon, but before I pressed X, I pressed L1. By L1, the game doesn't realize that you actually scrolled away from the recipe, because you need specific items to create Dream Eaters. However, with L1 you skip the scrolling process, you just jump to the Dream Eater that's in the top left of your list. However, you're able to just use the materials of the earlier listed Dream Eater that you hover to by pressing L1. Which means we created Rio Dragon, an endgame Dream Eater, with the materials of Meow Wow, the earliest Dream Eater you get in the entire game. Which is pretty silly, but it opened up a lot of possibilities for us in the speedrun. We haven't used as many in the beginner 80% run yet. Oops. But we are a lot faster now that we have that. Balloon. Actually, let me replace one of them with Balloon. Oops, high jump. And now we're also going to equip the Keyblade we just got, which is Counterpoint. If we wouldn't get Dive Wing, this Keyblade would be our final Keyblade of the game. Because Counterpoint has the third highest magic stat, tied with a different Keyblade that takes quite a lot. No, just straight up the third highest magic stat in the entire game. Yeah, the third highest available. There's also Dive Wing, which we hopefully get later with 15 magic. And then 2 Keyblades, Ultimate Weapon and End of Pain with 16. But we won't see either of those two. We hopefully see Dive Wing though. Now this is Brawler Mari. As I mentioned earlier, Sora and Riku fight the same dive bosses, but at different times. So in this case, Riku fights Brawler Mari way later than Sora did. And Brawler Mari is a bit stronger. He doesn't seem like it yet, but he has a few new moves, and you're gonna see it once I destroy the second pimple on his head. Now on Sora's end, the fight ended earlier, right here. But with Riku, Brawler Mari goes into the second phase, he turns around after like 3 spins. And now he has 4 extra pimples that we have to destroy, and he has 2 new moves that we have to avoid. Which one of them is the laser beam. It's pretty silly, it's not a hard move to dodge. And the second move is not this one, we already saw the stabbing move. The second move is what happens now. He turns around, oh no, I thought he does a 360. He comes closer, sucks in stones, and then it tries to annihilate us with an attack that looks like Solar Beam from Pokemon, or what you would imagine Solar Beam from Pokemon would look like. But if we hide behind the stones, we will not get hit by it whatsoever. And we use that to our advantage, because if we get hit, he closes his body again, so that way we cannot hit the pimples anymore. It is possible to do this fight in 2 cycles, but I've yet to even see it in a run, even done by someone else or anyone else. So it's still like, we know it's possible, but it's kind of a myth at the same time. It'd be amazing if someone figure out a way to do it, because I'm pretty sure on the 3DS version people used to be able to do that, but not on the PS4 version. Might be something about 60 FPS, screwed hitboxes, something like that. Now, We're gonna also refight Queen Butterfly, and there's a similar thing on her fight, but we can one cycle her later. I'll hopefully be able to show that later, but otherwise I'll just talk about it. Now, during the third attack, the rocks start moving, so we have to move along with them to not get hit and him to not close the body, and there we go. We defeated Brawlamari. And now this is the longest dive, by the way. 253 is quite a long diving section. This is the longest out of them all by far. Got Gold Diver, which is good. Now we're in the country of the Musketeers. Probably my favorite world in DDD. Because it has beautiful music, it looks aesthetically very pleasing. And it's also just straight up fun to play in. And there are two things we want to do here. One, of course, progress the story, but we also want to slightly grind levels. So I'm gonna suck these enemies in with a command we just collected called Zero Gravisa. We collect that in the Symphony of Sorcery of Riku. And that command sucks in all the enemies that aren't bosses. So basically all the lightweight enemies are just getting sucked in. That guard, by the way, is my controller acting up, as for some reason the signal on the analog stick doesn't go through sometimes. So you might even see Riku stuttering a few more times. Yeah, we kill a few more enemies to get a lot more EXP. Because we're way lower level than we should be at this point. And we are not gonna level up much more for the rest of the game, which also means that the enemies drop quite a lot of EXP for our standards. And that also means we can grind quite a bit without spending much time on it. We have to draw this little pole, or we have to spin on this little pole to lower this platform and present us, or reveal, there we go, that's what I was missing. Reveal the first Beagle Boy. Because our goal right here is to defeat the 3 Beagle Boys, who stole parts of the set, and the Queen Minnie, but that's whatever, nobody cares about her. And yeah, they're hidden in 2 different rooms. The first one was here, the other 2 are both in this next room, which is basically backstage. And we're gonna quickly move through the building like this. Go here. Reveal a second Beagle Boy between the clothes over there. Then go here. Use Zero Gravisa. I'm just using that to quickly get rid of the aura lines before they actually do something. Because we want to defeat them to get some XP off of them. I'm gonna use some balloons, gonna prepare them real quick, and then use Zero Gravisa. Oops. Again. Oh no, he cancelled. That's bad. So that's what I was talking about, the potential cancels, and they can be very bad if they happen with commands like Zero Gravisa, where you really want that to get off for extra damage. Don't run away. This is quite a bit slower now because of no Zero Gravisa. I could use it now, but at this point it's not worth it, because then we'd have to wait until he dies. Level 15 is the goal we had. And the reason I killed some enemies in between, like the lions and the foyer of the opera, the small bunch of enemies, is because I wanted that level up. That level up is pretty important. It gives us magic, and as said before, level directly increases our damage output. Okay, now we fight Holy Moly. Pretty cool name, in my opinion. I like it a lot. Nice pun as well. But the boss fight in itself is quite obnoxious. We can DM skip him, but I doubt it'll happen. Yeah, it almost happened. We almost got DM skip. I have yet to get it in a run. And it saves like 50 seconds easily. Now, something I'm not happy about is the link gauges of our Dream Meters. They're supposed to be at least halfway filled right now, but they're not even close to that. And they're supposed to be halfway filled at this point. It's pretty worrisome that they aren't. Okay, Tamashii. Okay, both of them are halfway filled now. That's good. That was a little bit worrying. Now we wait, because these hands do not disappear quicker if we kill them. So we wait until on the minimap we see a little flash where the Holy Moly will spawn. We use Balloonra and end him. Easy as that. And fighting itself can be a little obnoxious, especially because once you know that you can DM skip him and save all this time with the hands that we just lost, it's sad whenever you don't get it, and I've yet to get it in a run. I've got it in practice once or twice up until now, but it's just luck dependent. You just have to hope that he gets stunned a lot. Now we switch characters again. We're done with Riku for now. We switch characters and continue with Sora. Now Sora, we're gonna do a little menuing here. First we're gonna equip Knockout Punch. We didn't see that keyword with Riku because we didn't need it. Then we're gonna go into Command Deck. Equip Dream Candy, Elixir, Zero Gravisa, High Jump, and Super Glide. With Dream Candy and Elixir we can fill the link gauges manually without having to rely on Dream Eaters filling them by themselves by syncing up attacks with our attacks. With Dream Candy you just get a 50% fill, with Elixir you get a 100% fill. The 50% fill is going to be used right away to use Comet in the next fight. And Comet is just that good that it's worth picking up the item and then even using it and menuing just that item. That's how good Comet is in those kind of fights. And the Elixir is used right after that, so because we have a secondary fight that we want to use Comet on. Just because Comet instantly finishes that fight, but we'll see that later. This is one of the last diving sections that we have, by the way. There's not a lot of them that we'll see at this point. I think after this it's 3 more after this. One for Sora's Symphony of Sorcery, which we haven't entered yet, and one each for The World That Never Was, which is another Kingdom Hearts exclusive world, and we'll see it in a bit. It's also the final world, so once we come up there, it's not far from finishing the run. I think once we enter that world, it's 20 minutes, about that. Okay, we finished that. Got Gold Diver. It's very easy to get Silver Diver an accident here if you get hit too much. Okay, we're gonna use the Dream Candy now. That way I can immediately pop Comet. And the fight's already almost over. Now I just have to hope that these enemies aren't too obnoxious. Preferably they die before I have to use Zero Gravisa, but Zero Gravisa is pretty helpful here too. Gonna use the Elixir now so I don't have to later. Boom. Level 12, perfect. Now, the next fight is gonna be a little bit weird. It's a pretty gimmicky fight and it's a pretty boring fight. It's a little bit more exciting than Chernobog, but that's not hard as you might have seen. We have to fight a dinosaur, which sounds pretty cool. Fight with a dinosaur, sure, I take that. That guy has a lot of health too, which, nice. Could be a good fight, but the problem is, we're on the cart, he is far away, and we have balloons. And balloons, as you might have realized by now, are a little bit strong. So we can just sit here, scroll through our deck, pop a few balloons, drink a little bit of tea if we have something, and chill. Boom. That Zero Gravisa was just so it looks a bit nicer, but it's completely unnecessary. Now, the next fight, however, is going to be a little bit more interesting. First, we're going to skip 2 cutscenes after we skip the Tyranitar Rex recipe pop-up. I'm going to skip 2 cutscenes, then we're going to menu, because we need a different set of commands now. We're going to use balloon, 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 Fandara, Fandara. Now we're going to make use of Super Glide, which is what we got from Rio Dragon earlier. It's so much faster than using flow motion, and especially with the Dream Candies that we are able to cut out of the route that we originally had. It's just so nice to be able to fly through all of this. It saves time to collect the Rio Dragon recipe, go out of your way to buy the materials you need, then use Dream Eater Glitch, use a Water Barrel, and unlock and equip Super Glide. Then not doing that. All of that gets, and even more on time, gets saved that for obtaining Super Glide, which just shows how strong this ability really is and how fast we are with that. Now we use Zero Gravisa here, this time successfully. Pop a few balloons down here so that they drop into it, use Fandaras, and okay. Now Tama sheep used sleep, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because with sleep, if I'm unlucky, they're not going to be able to be defeated. Okay, there we go, it worked. Oh yeah, split or something. My split's running in the background, but I was about to say I haven't looked at them in a bit, but I'm lying. I've been looking at them after every single fight. This Beagle Boy fight was pretty pathetic. They can all be... Oh, it was not pathetic, but the enemies themselves are not the hardest ones to fight. Zero Gravisa affects the Beagle Boys, as you saw with Riku earlier too. Which just bunches them all together, and with Fandara and Balloonra we can just annihilate them. I'm gonna preset Zero Gravisa for the next part. This is something that only I do. People usually do this a little bit differently. I pop Zero Gravisa here, use Fandara twice, and then leave. Usually people only kill the dinosaur, but I feel like killing the ghost next to it is A, a little bit better, because you don't have to kill extra stuff later on. And B, you barely lose time to actually killing the 2 extra enemies, because you just kill them all simultaneously. Otherwise you'd have to not isolate that dinosaur that you want to kill, but you'd have to make sure that you don't kill a ghost instead of the dinosaur. Now we didn't get a level up yet, because we're waiting on level 13 now, which means in the next section we'll kill 1 single small enemy, and that'll give us enough XP so that we can continue. What we also will do here is remove the last Balloonra we have, as weird as it sounds, and equip Slow, because Balloonra, again as weird as it sounds, is not beneficial for the next fight. We actually want Balloons, Fandaras, Slow, and Zero Gravisa. We do not want Balloonras. I talked about DMs earlier in the run, so desperation moves of enemies. The next fight has a really lengthy DM where we just have to wait and do nothing, but we can skip it. And that skip is very hard with Balloonras, but it's a lot easier if we have Slow and Balloons. So what we're gonna do instead is just that. We're gonna quickly defeat this enemy, which takes longer than it should have. Boom, level 13. And with the setup that we have now, maybe I should have killed those, but it's whatever. With the setup that we have now, we can go and do this fight a lot faster than we've ever been able to do it. First part might seem not new to you guys. It's the Beagle Boys, once again. And there it shows the problem with Tama Sheep. Tama Sheep put that one Beagle Boy to sleep, so he wasn't in the... He wasn't dragged into all of it, like the other 2 were. But Zero Gravisa slows down everything. Even the force beneficial stuff, like getting dragged into Zero Gravisa, is slower, and their dying animation is slower. Everything just comes a lot slower, which is why I'm trying to not use a lot against the Beagle Boys here. Oh, this is bad. Yeah. Now we have to mimic the things on the cards that fall down. Even if you mimic them correctly, it's sometimes a little bit iffy and it just doesn't work. Okay, this is bad. So what Tama Sheep did there basically is delayed the fight by quite a bit by putting them to sleep over and over again. And as mentioned earlier, if they fall asleep, you cannot use the reality shift. And that's not good. We really want the reality shift, because with the reality shift we can knock them into Pete and put them out of the fight. We only want Pete to be in the fight. Now I'm gonna swap Tama Sheep back in, because it's still a little bit better than Meow. I just need to make sure that Tama Sheep doesn't put anyone to sleep anymore. We're gonna place the balloons around here. Like, I am now between Pete and the place he needs to go to start his oh no, to start his DM. This is bad. No, it's fine, okay. I'm now exactly between Pete and the place he needs to head towards to start his DM. And if I just fill that space with balloons, he won't be able to get there. Because now he's pretty much tunnel visioned into getting to this DM. He will not really attack me either. Which also means that I can almost safely skip the DM. He's still slowed, but we got the DM skip. If we wouldn't have gotten it, it would have taken so much extra time, and it's just super unnecessary. With Balloonra, the DM skip is a lot harder, and it's super inconsistent, but with balloons, because you know where all the balloons go, they're not homing, they just stay where you put them because they're stationary, you can lay them out properly to constantly stun the enemy and avoid his desperation move. It again just takes a long amount of time where you just have to wait and cry over your red numbers. Okay, now it's Symphony of Sorcery time with Sora. With Sora, Symphony of Sorcery is a little bit weird. I'm not too much of a fan of that world, mainly because of the boss fight that follows it. But we'll get to that once we're there. Now, the goal here, once again, as in most other dives, is to collect points. Which is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna slaughter some enemies, collect some points, and have some fun listening to Sora repeating the 3 voice lines he has allocated to him for this part over and over again, which are yeah, faster, and back off if you use triangle. They're not really creative with some of the voice lines. Maybe it's 4 voice lines, maybe I'm not giving the game enough credit. But yeah, you listen to the same few voice lines over and over again, and basically every single time someone's running the game, you just see chat during the first diving section spam faster, yeah, faster, here we go, faster, yeah, faster, over and over again. Which it's funny. But that shows how on the nose that is and how everyone knows what's going on there. You only have to watch one run and it's immediately weird. Now, command tech. We're gonna highly reconstruct this with a lot more balloon rust and 1 cure for safety. And we're also gonna change our keyblades to all for 1. We didn't see that keyblade with Rico earlier because we get it from Country of Musketeer, and in this world we get counterpoint. Now, the reason I waited for commenting on the next boss is because if we have Overcast, he's really not that big of a deal. But we don't have Overcast because my drop gauge it's only on 1.0, which means I know that it's not Overcast. If you enter and it's 1.3, you have it. If you enter and it's not 1.3, you don't have it, which is always sad to see. But whatever, it's fine. It doesn't lose that much time. It's also out of our control, so it's not like we messed up or anything. Now, the world in itself is pretty cool. It has some neat movement tech, even though you're mainly using Super Glide. It used to be one of the hardest worlds to properly maneuver through before we had Super Glide, because your flow motion game had to be on point for it. Now it still has to be good, but not nearly as good as it needed to be before. And we're a lot faster too. Oops. Okay, now the next room has an upward stream that just drags us up. We're gonna follow that and use this melody catcher. Just like with Riku, we're doing the same thing, but in different rooms. They have similar effects, they just change the environment of the world by altering it, just like with Riku. In this case, the upward stream gets removed. There are going to be a few mini tornadoes scattered throughout this area now, and those can be used to go up. However, the electrical stones, as you saw just now, they can hit you and then you get knocked down and fall your entire height. All your altitude, you'll just lose it right away. Not nice. Takes a bit of time to fall down sometimes, but it is what it is. Now, in this room, it's all rainy, and if we use the melody catcher, we're gonna fix that. We're basically gonna turn this entire section all bright and shiny and happy and woohoo! It's all gonna look a lot nicer. There you go. So much nicer. Now we're gonna go to the second section. Which melody catcher you get is random, by the way. It's not like every single of the note sheets has the same one on every single run. You'll always get a random one that you just... The music is the same usually, but you always get a random one selected, whatever the game wants to give you at that point. And now we cleared up this room, and we can go further to the final nodes. And those nodes are what we need to save Mickey, who's currently under a curse, but we didn't see that because we skipped cutscenes. We're gonna enter the third musical book, because Riku entered one, Sora entered one, and now we enter the final one. Which the final one contains the boss that Sora has to fight. Now you might recognize that guy. It's SpeedCon from TT2, who summoned all the Dream Eaters before, the Wargoyle, Hoko Monkey, and Charclosser. And now he's manning up and fighting us. We first have to flow motion rail towards him, and if possible, dodge his attacks to not get stunned. The purple orbs are a lot more obnoxious than the big rock that he can launch, because the rock is easy to dodge. But it's random which one you get. Okay, now the fight begins. We're mainly gonna spam Balloonra, as you might have expected. But there are also a few more things we can use here. This fight takes a while. He has a lot of health and we don't deal a lot of damage. But both Zero Graviga and Collision Magnet are very helpful here, because Zero Graviga, how do you call it? It doesn't stun him. He's just not going to be able to move if it hits him, and Collision Magnet can drag him from anywhere. Like right here, I can just drag him away and have him right next to me. The only thing with Collision Magnet is you want to use it whenever he teleports and not just at random. Now there's something that... Oops. There's something that SpeedCon can do, which is summon little brooms, and if he summons too many, he's gonna despawn, and we have to kill the brooms. We don't want to let it get that far. You can also grab an out of teleport, by the way. Yeah, we don't want to let it get that far, which is also why we constantly want to put pressure on him by either using Balloonras or Zero Graviga. He's right now summoning quite a few, and I don't like that. Yeah, he despawned just now. That's exactly what I meant. He summoned too many brooms, and now we have to defeat them. There we go. Get over here. Okay, that is weird. Usually it would drag him over, but it didn't now. Which also means it's going to be a very slow fight. I have not seen this move in ages, and I don't even know what it does. Now, if you're too slow, he can repeat the flow motion section on the rail that we had earlier. But I don't want that. I've yet to have that happen in a run. It would be not so nice to have it happen now. This fight is a lot nicer if you have Overcast, because of Overcast the fight would have been... like, we would have finished the fight twice by this point. But Overcast is unfortunately luck dependent. Oh, he teleported, didn't even realize. Good. That was it for SpeedCon. Oops. Accidentally opened something. Okay. Now that was a pretty garbage fight. That was pretty bad. But it's fine. The fight in itself is not even fun casually. Personally, I really dislike it. And it's pretty stressful because a lot of things can go wrong, as you can see. Also, you might have noticed no voice lines were happening in that world, which is why I personally dislike the world, because you only have sound effects and music. It's a little bit weird. You don't have voice lines. It's just so silent. There's no anime grunting in the background. Some people might like it, but I don't know. It's part of the game. Queen Butterfly. We're gonna fight her again, and we can one-cycle her. It's hard. It's severely inconsistent. I tried to find a pattern earlier today, and I've been able to find something, but it's not. It's still far from consistency I'd like to see. Wait, did I? Okay, I didn't miss any. If you miss any of the beasts, it takes so long to hit the map again. Now we defeated her horn, and now we can attack her little pimples on the back. We can destroy them all in one go, but it's super hard and super rare, and it probably won't happen. Oh my god, we got it again! That is amazing. This is a hype moment every single time, because it's not 100% consistent to get this, but if you get it, you save like 25 or 30 seconds, and it's super nice. Okay. Now we get dive wing for Sora because we got gold diver on every single dive. You saw the keyword popping up already, but later on I'll be able to showcase it a little bit longer because we'll be having a short auto-scroller. Now what happens now is we get a forced drop to Riku just because we entered the world, so this is just a story drop. If we would drop back to Sora, we'd be able to continue as normal. But we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go to the world that never was and enter that world of Riku, maybe even finish it already, but that's all dependent on what we see next. First, we need to finish this dive. It's not long. It's the longest dive for points, I believe, but it's not a long dive per se. We have to collect 1,300 points. That's definitely the highest amount of points you have to collect, and almost the highest amount of points you can collect in a dive, I believe, in general. Just a little trivia, but overall this dive is pretty straightforward. It's, funnily enough, the last dive we have to... Oh, not the last dive, the second last dive we have to do in the entire game. I also lied earlier. I said it's 14 dives, and then I said it's 15 dives, including Chernobog boss. It's actually 16, but the 16 one is a little bit special, which is why I didn't count it. But it is a diving section. Yeah, not really long, but a lot of points that we collect. And Riku should get gold diver as well, so we got dive wing too. Now, the reality shift in this world is Mirage Split or Nightmare Slayer, but we're gonna see those later. First, we need to sell some stuff to be able to buy some stuff. We're gonna buy 2 Kiragas and that's it. Now, the drop gauge is not on 1.3, which means we don't have overcast of Riku. Which also means that we won't finish this world now. And it introduces us to the final big RNG segment of the game. Which, by the way, if you're ever trying to PB in this game, this part right here is the make or break point. Around 2 hours in, you'll be having to constantly shuffle through your drop bonuses, the augments that each world can have. And if you don't want to lose an absurd amount of time, you'll have to drop until you get overcast for at least Riku, preferably Sora as well, but Riku is the more important character to get it on. You'll see why later, but the grind in itself for that will happen in a second. Or in a few seconds. For now, this is the Mirage Split. We have to sever the chains and cut through the parts that are drawn in different colors. So in this case, the gray part, I think with Sora it's actually gray as well, but the chains look different and have a different color. We destroyed that orb. Those orbs always open up a new part of the level. And that's the running theme here, basically. And we drop down. Use Mirage Split on this guy. There are all kinds of patterns you can get with Mirage Split. You can get patterns that you can immediately finish by just mashing X. But there are also patterns like that one where you have to wait a little bit. But that's far from the worst one. The really worst one takes 3 slashes and it's always slow and you always have to wait for one of the parts to appear. So it's a little bit of an RNG segment, but it's not too bad. Now the next part opened up. We're gonna collect this chest for something called Double Flight. Then we're gonna equip Dive Wing. Equip our reward for getting A rank. Equip Kyoraga. And then the rest filled with Balloon Rust. And of course Double Flight that we just collected. Now we drop. We have to drop now until the 3rd slot, while we're dropping as Riku, shows us Overcast. This can take an infinite amount of time, which is the only reason why this estimate is so high. I'd easily be able to beat this game under estimate, but this section is just 100% out of our control, which means worst case scenario is we'll have to just sit here and wait. But I don't want to think about that. Instead, I'm just gonna think happy thoughts and hope that the next one is gonna show us Overcast. Because right now you saw the 3rd slot showed us Overcast. That was what we need. That's the block we need, but we don't need it for Sora, we need it for Riku. And it's perfect. So we have Overcast for Sora and Riku now, which is beautiful. That is exactly what we need, and I'm happy that we got that in a marathon run now. Because now Sora will have a very fast final fight. And after that, we'll be done with Sora for the rest of the game. After we beat the next boss, Sora is gonna be sleeping for the rest of the game, so we won't be able to control him. And instead, whatever drop bonus or world augment we have for Riku is what we're gonna keep. If we have Overcast, we're gonna keep Overcast for the rest of the game. And it makes a difference in that sense, or in the way that if you finish Riku's part of the world that never was first before you finish Sora, then Riku will have to forcefully drop every single time you want to enter the final boss fights, because story-wise you cannot enter it, and story-wise Sora has to progress to a specific part first. If Sora doesn't progress that far, you cannot enter the final fights and you'll automatically drop. If you beat the game at the world that never was first with Sora before you even go there with Riku, then it's all fair game. You just go there, next cutscene plays. But you also keep your drop bonus. If you'd go there while you still have something to do with Sora, you'd lose that drop bonus or word augment, and you'd have to settle with whatever you get next time. So getting Overcast there is super nice, and like that's exactly what you would want to see in a PB attempt. It didn't take long to get Overcast, and now both Sora and Riku have it, which will significantly speed up everything. Significantly. I'm gonna save like 40 seconds in the next fight, and then a lot of time in the ones following. So, right here, this would all be done without Super Glide if we wouldn't have had that reroute recently. And with Super Glide, it's pretty easy to go through this. This is actually the hardest part if you don't have Super Glide. I said Symphony of Sorcery is the hardest part, but this one is actually quite a bit harder if you want to be precise with where you go, because there are quite a few difficult sections that you would have to maneuver through. It's possible for sure, but it's not easy. So, we're almost done with traveling around. We're almost at the final boss fight for Sora's section. No more. Yeah, SpeedCon is going very well. Everyone's having fun, hopefully. Runners are having fun, viewers are having fun, organizers are hopefully having fun as well. Everyone's having a good time. Now I swapped out Tamashib for Meow Wow because we don't need Tamashib anymore. Tamashib is actually not good for this fight because he doesn't really do a lot. And Meow Wow can stun lock Xemnas. The music during this fight is also pretty epic. Like, no matter if you are in a bad pace or not, this music always hypes you up. Or at least me, it always hypes me up. It's crazy how impactful video game music can be. Or music in general, put it at that. Now there's something you can do where you can DM skip this boss fight as well, just like we've done with others before. But that DM skip is almost entirely luck dependent. There's a setup for it, but that setup is super bad. So I wanted to show the Keyblade, right? I can use the zoom feature of the PS4. We can get a good look at it while we wait for buildings to fly by. Oh, we can also watch how Meow Wow, or first stream eater ever, engages into battle with the final boss. Go get him! No! Okay. We just had to wait a little bit in this section. Now there's a reality shift we could do here, but that reality shift is actually slower, so we're just gonna tank the building to the face and continue from there. Like nothing ever happened. And mash triangle like nothing ever happened. Okay. Sometimes if you start spamming triangle, you're not gonna be able to see the enemy's health. Just a little bit weird, but... Wait, did I split twice now? I split once, okay. And that's it for Sora with this run. We'll not be seeing Sora for the rest of the run, at least not as a playable character. We will even see him outside of cutscenes in one small section. Now we continue as Riku. As you see, the drop gauge is gone, which means no automatic drop any. Ah, shit. That was bad. You see the drop gauge is gone, so there's no automatic dropping anymore. You can, and no manual dropping either. We cannot switch to Sora anymore for the rest of the game. Story-wise, once you finish the game, Sora will wake up again, you can control him again, everything's fine and dandy. But while you play the story, after you beat Xemnas, Sora will be knocked out until you beat the final boss. This is the a pattern that looks very like much like the fast pattern. There's a pattern that looks very similar to what we just had that can be immediately cut with one slash, as I was talking about, but this one wasn't long either. We have to defeat slice 3 orbs in this room to change the area to our liking, so we can progress. And later on, this area will look completely different. There, that's the fast pattern. Yeah, he's had a long day and needs a nap. He's been speedrunning for 2 hours. He can go to bed for a bit. Yeah, that's the second transition. And now we go for the third one by defeating this last orb. We'll not have to defeat any more orbs, which is good, because they're a little bit obnoxious to fight sometimes. That's a decently fast pattern, but that's what I was talking about. Sometimes you have to wait for one link to be severed. Okay. And that's how the room actually looks like. I don't know how they came up with that clustered version, but I guess. Okay, now we have to travel a little bit further to get to the second last gauntlet of bosses. They're actually, like, we have like, I want to say 10 minutes of the run left, but we have to fight 5 bosses in the meantime. One of which only takes a minute, including the cutscenes that we skip. There's a gauntlet of 3 bosses and a gauntlet of 2 bosses. The one with 3 bosses is a little bit more scary, but the one with 2 bosses is, if you're going from a technical standpoint, a lot more in-depth and a lot more difficult. I'm gonna try and skip that second pipe now. There's a little weird collision glitch that if you want to properly engage onto the pipes, you have to wall jump before that. Otherwise you'll be glitching around like crazy and it's not fun. And all kinds of weird stuff can happen. The pipes here are generally not optimized very well. I don't know why, but the collision just messes up a lot and it's not nice to work with that. Okay. Music's getting epic again. Oops, I accidentally used Kiraga. Now this fight is a little bit weird. It's not hard by any means, but he has one move that just completely ignores everything you know and love and just puts you at 1 HP. And the worst part about that is after that move, you're stun locked for like about a second or two and cannot move or do anything. You are completely out of control. And the worst part about it all is he heals during that. That is the move. Oh my god, that was crazy. So this move puts you at 1 HP and you have about 1 second between the damaging part and the part where you can move, where you can just die. If the enemy decides to do that, he can just defeat you right away and you have no talk in that. No influence whatsoever, except for actually dodging that move prematurely. Luckily, another part of that move is that he drains HP from us. He removes all the HP we have, puts it into HP orbs, and he's able to collect those HP orbs. If you're at full health and all those HP orbs are flying around the arena and he collects them, he's gonna be at full health as well. Even though he was about to be defeated, he's gonna be back to full health. Luckily, the balloons that I set up right before that move went off defeated him. Okay, can you not? So in this fight you would want to use a reality shift normally, but the reality shift is slower, so we just defeat him like that. Totally fine. Oh, I forgot to split. I'm looking at the splits right now. I'm gonna talk about them later, because something funny happened during that. Okay, now Anson 2. By the way, the first guy was Anson, the final boss of the first game, but he's not really a deal whatsoever in this game. Even casually is not hard. This one is a bit harder and can be a bit more obnoxious. We're gonna use the reality shift to stun him for the rest of the fight. He's not gonna be really stunned for the rest of the fight, but he's gonna be stunned long enough to be put into an attack that also takes long enough for us to just annihilate him. I'm just gonna mash triangle now, and wait. He's gonna turn the rune dark. Dark pillars will emerge out of the ground. They can damage us, but they won't because this is the last set of balloons, and boop. Got him real good. Okay. This is pretty funny. Unbelievable. Okay. Oh, right. So now we're here. Some people might know this area from the second game. Entering this room, if you still have something left to do with Sora, so like killing the final boss for him, is where you would see the cutscene where Riku just forcefully falls asleep again and you swap to Sora no matter what. But because we finished Sora earlier, we can go and just beat the final bosses now. Which this fight has one of the best tracks in the entirety of Kingdom Hearts. It's super nice, and I hope the game volume is fine so you can merge into it. We're not gonna do much except for spamming Balloon Rush, so I'm gonna let you guys listen to it a little bit. Okay, the music stopped now. So this fight has like 2.5 phases. I'm gonna call it 2.5 because this is like half a phase. The first phase, you defeat him. Second phase, you use a reality shift on his clock to free him, basically, because he fused with that clock, and now he is not invulnerable, but he's hiding between the realm, or in the realm of time, basically. Now phase 2 starts, where he's gonna be once again the clock, but he's not able to take cover in it, and we can actually defeat that clock. And we're getting beat up quite badly. Usually you would be able to use those attacks to your advantage so that they cancel your balloon rush. And that way you would be able to get out way more balloon rush than normally, but didn't work this time. Which is totally fine. Oh, okay, this is sad. Okay, I'm gonna talk about it now before I forget later. So, if you remember, SpeedCon, which we fought with Sora, went pretty badly. So compared to the splits I have, we actually lost 1.5 minutes to it. And if not for that fight, this could have been a 1.5 minute marathon world record, which would be pretty crazy because the world record is already pretty good. But because of the SpeedCon fight, it didn't work. But it's still a really good run. Like, we had quite a few good things happening in this run. And most things that we tried to do worked out. This section is the final dive section that I was teasing on, and this is why I said we won't be seeing Sora anymore. And why I didn't say it. Because we're actually going to see tons of Soras. We're still not done with it. We have to attack 30 Soras while anti-Soras are trying to block our path. Which is just obnoxious that they're flying around trying to block us. It's not even difficult or anything, they are just annoyances. And after the dive section, we have the final boss fight. A lot of people don't accept this fight as the final boss fight because it's not nearly as cool and meaningful as the one before. But story-wise, this is a very important fight. This is a 100% lore fight. Because right now Sora is asleep and we're trying to wake up his heart by defeating the nightmare of the other person that's residing inside his heart. Because Sora is actually not alone. He has another person in his heart, which is who we are beating up right now, called Ventus. But explaining all of that will go way too deep into lore territory. So I'm just gonna put that knowledge out. This is he can transition between a black room and a white room. The white room removes your Dream Eaters, which is whatever, but the white room has one move that we just saw of the blue balls flying around, where he is completely invulnerable and he isn't even on the map, so you cannot touch him, you cannot deal any damage, and just have to wait until it's over. It's pretty unfortunate whatever it happens, and you cannot manipulate what he does. But you can kind of prevent him from going into white rooms in the first place by just spamming ballooners and stun lockpicking. Now, good, that's it. Time is coming up soon, because the last thing you have to do is just press X a few times in a rhythm, and then on the final hit is when time's coming up. He has 1 bar of health left. We're gonna start depleting it now. Time's coming up in around 6-7 seconds. And time. Woo! Did it. What was the time? Let me check. Hey, that's a PB. Nice. So we got 209.02, which is a 4-second PB. And only 8 seconds away from world record, which, thinking about what happened in the Spelican fight, is just crazy that this run went this well. Overall, yes, pretty cool run. It's a pretty cool game. The fights can be a little bit, I'd say, boring, as you saw, because you mainly spam balloons. But the movement in this game is super well. It's super nice to execute all of that, and it's just a lot of fun overall. If you guys are interested in Kingdom Hearts speedruns, we have a Discord server where every single game is talked about. Days, 1, 2, DDD, Free, Recoded, Recom, all of them. Even key, but not for speedrunning purposes. And yeah, it's active every single day, basically. You always have someone in there who can help you out, who can explain something if you need help. So if you ever wanted to get into Kingdom Hearts speedrunning, it'd be the right place to go. Other than that, what about VCast? We don't talk about VCast. Other than that, I thank you all for watching, and I hope that you guys are gonna have a lot of fun with the rest of the SpeedCon. Next up is Yakuza Kiwami. I think it's gonna be Velare who runs it. That's not the schedule. There's the schedule. Let me not say anything wrong. Hoxie, there we go. Hoxie's gonna run it, and Velare is gonna run Yakuza Ishin later on tonight. That's it from me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I know I've talked a lot. And yeah,
What is it
that
you're so afraid of?
is it from me. I'm gonna give over to the tick now.
Right on, Desa. Thank you so much. That was one hell of a run. And yeah, as you said, we've got a double header of Yakuza coming up after you here. So we're going to take a brief intermission, and then we will be back with Hoxie and his run of Yakuza Kiwami.
Bye.